Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Monday morning, February 2nd, 2026.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be honest with you. If you're waking up today, scrolling through your feed, you're probably feeling a profound sense of whiplash.
Oh, complete whiplash. It's like we're looking at two totally different Americas, you know?
Exactly. On one screen, you have all the footage from the Grammys last night, the high fashion, the polish, the whole spectacle.
The music industry doing its thing. And then, I mean, you literally swipe once.
And you get images coming out of Minnesota that look like they belong in a history book.
A frantic, collapsing war zone. Not, news report from the Midwest. We're seeing military-grade raids, shutdowns. It's frankly terrifying.
It's such a jarring disconnect. You see Bad Bunny holding a trophy, and the very next headline is about Minneapolis schools going remote because federal agents are on the streets in tactical gear.
It feels impossible.
How are these two things happening in the same country on the same day?
But they are. And not only are they happening at the same time, they're colliding.
Oh.
And that's what we need to unpack. This isn't just an awards show, and it's not just a policy crisis. We're watching the moment the fantasy of Hollywood crashed right into the reality of Operation Metro Surge.
So let's bridge that gap. We've got a huge stack of sources today. The Guardian, Variety, a lot of really intense on-the-ground reporting from the Twin Cities DHS policy paper.
A lot to get through.
Yeah. We need to understand what's happening on the ground first, because without that context, all the celebrity speeches, they're just noise. So let's start there. What exactly is Operation Metro Surge?
Okay, so to understand the tension at the Grammys, you have to understand the fear in Minneapolis. Operation Metro Surge, it technically launched pretty quietly back in December 2025.
Right.
But since the new year, under DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and the border czar, Tom Homan, it has escalated into the largest immigration enforcement operation in modern U.S. history.
I want to pause on that title, border czar. That's not an official cabinet position, is it?
No, it's informal, but it carries immense weight in this administration. It basically signals that Homan has been given, unprecedented authority to coordinate across agencies, ICE, CBP, all of them.
So he can cut through the red tape.
Exactly. And he's used that power to deploy over 2,000 federal agents to the Twin Cities.
2,000 agents. That sounds like an army.
It feels like one.
But why Minneapolis? I mean, it's not a border town. It's about as far north as you can get.
It's very specific. It's demographic. The operation is targeting the Somali population. Minneapolis has the largest Somali diaspora in the country.
And the rhetoric from the White House has been pretty explicit.
Very explicit. President Trump has referred to the community as garbage, as infiltrators. So this operation, it isn't some random sweep. It's a targeted saturation strategy.
So it's not just about finding individuals. It's about making a statement.
Yeah.
A presence.
It's a total disruption of daily life. This isn't normal police work. A squad car shows up, serves a warrant, and leaves. This is an occupation. We're seeing reports that Minneapolis public schools, they transitioned to remote learning last week.
That is wild to me. Schools are closing.
And not because of a snowstorm or a new virus. They closed because parents were terrified to walk their kids to school with federal tactical teams on the corners.
Oh, my God.
The administration, they couldn't guarantee student safety during the commute.
Imagine getting that email as a parent. School is canceled due to federal patrols. The psychological stress of that is. I mean, you can't even quantify it.
It's a mental health crisis just as much as a legal one. The fear is palpable.
And the community is fighting back.
They are. On January 23rd, they organized an economic blackout. It was basically a general strike. Somali-owned businesses closed. Allies refused to shop. Parts of the city just ground to a halt.
I saw reports about checkpoints at the airport, too.
Yep, at Minneapolis-St. Paul International.
But strikes are one thing. The thing that really turned up the temperature, the tragedy everyone's talking about, is the violence. We have to talk about Renee Nicole Good.
This was the turning point. Renee Nicole Good was a 37-year-old mother. She was also a legal observer.
Can you just clarify that role for people? What does a legal observer actually do?
So a legal observer is usually a trained volunteer. They're there to be neutral. They wear bright neon vests or hats to stand out.
To be visible.
Right. Their only job is to document police interactions with civilians, to make sure rights aren't being violated. They are, by definition, non-combatants.
And Renee Good was in her SUV.
In her SUV, wearing her vest, just monitoring, when she was shot and killed by an ICE agent on January 7th.
A neutral observer, shot in her car.
Yes. And then shortly after that, Alex Preddy, another civilian, was killed. These deaths changed everything from a policy dispute into a battle for survival.
And now the state government is pushing back.
In a way we haven't seen in decades. You're talking about Minnesota's Attorney General, Keith Ellison.
Right. He's suing the federal government.
Yes, but what's fascinating is the legal argument he's using. He's citing the 10th Amendment.
Wait, the 10th Amendment. That's the states' rights amendment. That's an argument we usually hear from, conservatives trying to block federal regulations.
And that is the irony of this moment. The 10th Amendment says powers not given to the feds are reserved for the states. Ellison is arguing that policing the streets is a state power.
Not a federal one.
Not a federal one. He's saying Operation Metro Surge crossed the line from immigration enforcement, which is federal, into general policing, which is the state's job. He's saying the feds are usurping the state's sovereignty.
That's a massive constitutional showdown. A progressive AG using a states' rights argument to stop a conservative federal administration.
It completely flips the script. And the federal response has been to threaten even more force.
This is where the military comes in.
There are credible reports from our sources that the administration is readying the 11th Airborne Division for deployment.
Active duty military.
Yes. And if they deploy active duty soldiers on American streets for domestic law enforcement, that triggers the Insurrection Act.
A line you do not want to cross.
It is essentially declaring war on your own people.
So just to recap the reality part of this. Military looming, states suing the Fed, schools closed, civilians killed. That is the atmosphere.
That's the atmosphere.
And that is the backdrop for the Golden Globes and the Grammys.
And that's where we get the collision. Usually, Hollywood is great at existing in a bubble.
Masters of it.
But this year, the bubble didn't just leak, it popped.
It really did. It's like the cognitive dissonance just got too loud to ignore. It started, back on January 11th with the Golden Globes?
Right. The Globes happened just days after Renee Good was killed. So the response there was what I'd call the polite phase of the protests.
This was the Be Good campaign, right?
Exactly. Organizers distributed these simple black and white pins. They said, be good or ice out. It was really grassroots.
I've read they were passing them out at parties, like a secret handshake.
That's what our sources say, just slipping them into pockets.
And we saw them on big names. Mark Ruffalo, Wanda Sykes. Jean Smart accepted her award wearing one.
Ariana Grande, Natasha Lyonne.
Okay, but I have to, play devil's advocate for a second here. A pin on a tuxedo. Does that, does that actually do anything? Isn't it just a little performative? Celebrities feeling better about being famous?
That's a valid critique, and usually I would probably agree with you. Awareness can be a very cheap currency in Hollywood.
Right.
But in this specific case, we have evidence that these symbols actually do matter to the people in power. The pins, they broke the spell of normalcy.
How so?
Well, when you have someone like Ariana Grande wearing that pin, it forces the millions of people watching, people who maybe don't read the political section, to ask, what does that mean? It pierces the narrative firewall the administration tries to build.
So it forces the conversation into spaces where the government doesn't want it.
Precisely. And by the time we got to the Grammys last night, the polite phase was long gone. The Grammys were not symbolic. They were confrontational.
The tone was completely different.
Kalani left no room for interpretation. She explicitly said FKICE during her speech. She said she wasn't interested in being couth or polite.
And then Bad Bunny. We were talking about, arguably the biggest pop star on the planet.
He won for his album, and he used his entire acceptance speech to just dismantle the logic of the raids. He talked about dignity, about humanity. When you have him and all these other stars aligned, it creates a cultural wave that hits people that regular news just doesn't reach.
Even Trevor Noah, the host, he looked like he was walking a tightrope all night.
A very thin tightrope.
But this is where the story gets darker.
Yeah.
Because the government isn't just ignoring this. They're hitting back.
No. And this is the part that proves your question about the pins wrong. The administration is taking this pushback very, very seriously.
The Kennedy Center.
Exactly. Just as these protests were ramping up, President Trump announced that the Kennedy Center, the premier cultural institution in D.C., is closing for renovations.
For 2 years, starting on July 4th.
The symbolism is not subtle. Independence Day. Closing the hub of American arts. Our sources and most analysts, they all agree this isn't about the HVAC system.
This is retaliation.
It's a signal. If the arts community critiques us, we will shut down your stages. It's a tactical move to deplatform the cultural establishment.
That's a hostage situation. Be nice or we take away the theater.
It's a tug of war. The artists use their screen time to protest, and the government uses its power to turn off the lights.
Which brings us to, I think, the weirdest part of this whole story. We've talked about the reality and the reaction. Now we need to talk about the reflection.
The mirror.
Because in the middle of this real-life drama about raids and resistance, the biggest movie in the country is about raids and resistance.
We have to talk about one battle after another.
The new Paul Thomas Anderson film.
Yes, an adaptation of Thomas Pynchon's novel Vineland. Now, Pynchon is notoriously hard to adapt, right? His books are dense, paranoid.
All government conspiracies.
Right. But Anderson updated the setting to the near future, and the result is, honestly, it's uncanny.
It swept the globes. It's dominating the critics' choice. But for people who haven't seen it, just lay out the plot, because it sounds like it was written yesterday.
So the film stars Leonardo DiCaprio as a former revolutionary trying to live a quiet life, and you have Teyana Taylor playing his partner Perfidia.
Okay.
They're being hunted by a corrupt military officer, played by Sean Penn.
Cole Lockjaw.
Cole Lockjaw. Even the name sounds like satire. In the film, Lockjaw is obsessed with crushing these revolutionaries. He uses militarized raids. He collaborates with this white supremacist group called the Christmas Adventurers Club.
Which sounds ridiculous, but also weirdly familiar.
That's Pynchon. The absurdity is the point. But the visuals of Lockjaw's raids in the film agents in tactical gear, sweeping into neighborhoods, they're almost identical to the news footage from Minneapolis right now.
So the audience is in the theater, watching Sean Penn raid a house, feeling that horror, and then they walk out, check their phones, and see Tom Homan doing the exact same thing.
It's a massive feedback loop. The movie is acting as a mirror. And of course, the political reaction to the film has been explosive.
The right-wing media is calling it leftist propaganda.
And accusing it of glorifying violent revolutionaries.
Which is the exact same language they're using to describe the protesters in Minnesota.
Precisely. They're conflating the fictional characters with the real citizens. And on the left, there's a more nuanced debate happening, especially around Teyana Taylor's character.
Right, Perfidia. There's been criticism about whether she's empowered or just sexualized because of how Pynchon writes women.
Yes, it's a heavy role.
Yeah.
She's a black woman in a revolutionary space, and her body is often used as a bargaining chip in the story.
And Taylor's defended the role.
Fiercely. She said, "We don't get the same amount of grace," pointing out that for black women, resistance often involves a physical vulnerability that other characters don't face. She's arguing, showing that isn't exploitation, it's truth.
But the thing that really ties this all together for me, the aha moment, is Teyana Taylor herself.
And closes the circle.
She's starring in a movie about resisting a corrupt military force. And in real life, she walked the red carpet wearing the Be Good pin. She is bridging the gap between her character, Perfidia, and the real-life victim, Renee Good.
It blurs the line completely. You can't tell where the art ends and the activism begins. Hollywood is awarding a movie about resisting the government while actively resisting the government.
The movie isn't just a movie anymore.
It's become a manifesto for this moment.
Do you think it would have had this impact if it came out, say, 2 years ago? Or 2 years from now?
Absolutely not. 2 years ago, it would have been a quirky, paranoid period piece. A cool Pynchon adaptation.
Or
today, it looks like a documentary sent back from the future. It's resonating because it's validating the fear people are feeling. It's telling them, you aren't crazy, this is really happening.
Okay, so let's pull back and look at the whole board. We have the raids, the red carpet protests, the retaliation against the Kennedy Center, and this prophetic movie. What's the takeaway? What are we actually watching play out here?
We're watching a battle for the narrative. Operation Metro Surge is a physical battle. People are being arrested, people are dying. That's the hard reality. But the award season, that is the battle for how we interpret that reality.
It's the battle for the story.
Exactly. The government wants the story to be about law and order, about cleaning up cities. The artists, through their speeches and their films, are trying to tell a different story. A story about overreach, about humanity, about the moral duty to resist.
And because these award shows are one of the last places we still have a monoculture, where millions of people watch the same thing at the same time, the stakes are incredibly high.
It's one of the few platforms left where you can grab the mic and speak to the whole country at once. That's why the government is so threatened by it. That's why they're closing the Kennedy Center. They want to cut the mic.
And we're not done. We've had the Globes. We just had the Grammys. The big one is still coming.
The Oscars. March 15th.
The Super Bowl of narrative.
Just think about the trajectory. The Globes were polite. The Grammys were defiant. What happens at the Oscars? If the rhetoric keeps ramping up, if the 11th Airborne is actually deployed, what happens when the biggest platform in the world goes live?
It feels like we are just barreling toward a showdown.
We might be watching the last gasp of a specific kind of American freedom, the freedom to stand on a stage and critique power without the feed being cut.
Oh.
Or we might be watching the moment where the culture finally forces the policy to change.
It's heavy, it's scary, but it's history happening in real time, framed by gold statues and tear gas.
And don't blink, the story is changing every hour.
We'll be watching. Thank you for diving deep with us today. It's a lot to process, but that's why we're here.
Keep your eyes open.
We'll see you at the Oscars, if they're still on.